grew up on the farm, so I was away from everybody, and the closest neighbor was about 2 miles away. So between Gray and Bayou, I didn't have much of a camaraderie and livelihood. I had a couple of friends of mine that asked me if I wanted to go bowling, and I said, "What is that?" I was 18 years old, and they took me over to VFW bowling lanes, and I bowled my very first game. I bowled a 99, and I turned to the two guys and asked them, I said, "Is there professional bowling?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Well, that's what I'm going to be." When I was young, the best bowlers that were around were, I can remember trying to bowl like Russell Blanchard, because he was a top-notch bowler in the city at that time. And then there was the youngsters coming up like Joey LeBlanc and Mo Lee Red. I bowled a little at the old Homer Bowl before they tore it down. Now, when Homer Bowl first opened up, the conditions were pretty tough. So if you averaged, I averaged 193, and I had the highest average in the league. And then a new proprietor came in by the name of James Crowley. He did some blocking of the lanes where they didn't put any oil on the outside boards of the lane, and put all kind of oil from the fifth board on in, and then everybody started averaging 220. I battled them really hard. I can recall one time I was bowling against Jim Crowley, and he and I were at odds about him doing that. I got up on the approach and spun around and walked up and threw the ball, and I started with the first 11. And on the 12th shot, I purposely threw it like around second arrow where I knew there was no chance to get a strike, so I wouldn't shoot 300, because I didn't think it was a fair score. I practiced probably 10 or 12 games a day, every day. Of course, I was self-taught, so what I was doing was what I thought I was doing right, but as I found out later in life that I was doing it in the wrong way. All I wanted to do was say how much it hooked, which is what a lot of these kids do today. How much they can hook it, not how many pins they knock down. I guess the one that really helped me the most was Earl Sterling from Sugar Bowl Lane, who revamped my game and made me a better bowler. So I moved to New Orleans in 1968, I think it was. I went to work for a bowling center, Sugar Bowl Lanes, and I was a mechanic there. The proprietor was a pro bowler from St. Louis. He saw me bowl one day, and he said, "You got potential. You could be a really good bowler if you learn how to bowl." And at that time, I was averaging 226. I turned and looked at him. I said, "How much better can I be?" He said, "You're averaging 226 on these conditions, but if you bowl on some tough conditions, I guarantee you're not going to average 226. You're not going to even come close to that." So there was a guy that had pockets full of money, and he said, "I want to put you on a tour, but before I send you out on a big tour, I want to send you on a regional program." So he sent me out to Lafayette Lanes in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I bowled 12 games, and I was 436 minus. Now, minus is the 200 as the par. I was 436 under the 200 average. I couldn't wait to get back to New Orleans to ask this guy to teach me how to bowl, because I realized what he was talking about. I wasn't a bowler. I was a scorer. At that time, you had to have a 190 average for 66 and 2/3 games for 2 years in succession, which I easily accomplished that. But then you had to go to a PBA school, and you had to pass the PBA school. The very first tournament, I was shaking out of my boots. The first game, I was really shaking. But I calmed down, and then I ended up, on my first tournament, I ended up making the top 24. Oh, I enjoyed the devil out of it. You're in a different city with different people every week. So you never saw the same faces except the people that were actually bowling on the tour. But all the people that came out to watch was all new faces. And I was a crowd pleaser. I seemed to get the crowd to pull for me all the time.
As we've seen, he's a very emotional player. I asked him, does that emotion help you, or is it something you still need to learn to control?
Well, if I get into the game and start running shots out, usually it helps me in many senses of ways. I use that to pump myself up, where other people sometimes, it gets them out of that rhythm. The crazier I get, the more into it I get, the better it makes me play.
The crazier he gets, the better he plays.
I didn't bowl that much on a regular tour because I had a business in Houma, and I had to pay attention to it. So I didn't get to bowl too much on the regular tour. I went out in 1984, and I bowled the first session, which was 15 weeks. And I made the finals 13 out of the 15 and cashed 15 out of 15. I had a really good season, but when I came back home to my business, it was almost bankrupt. Gary Dickinson, that poor guy could never beat me. It was like I had his number. I could score like crazy against Gary Dickinson. It was just unbelievable. There was one guy by the name of James Stuss on the senior tour that had my number. Every time he bowled me, he'd shoot 279 to 300. Every time he bowled me. So I brought out the best in him every time. And I pulled him over to the side one day, and I said, what is it about me that you find to be able to shoot all these tremendous scores at me? He says, well, I've watched you bowl, and I knew that whenever I got on the lanes with you, I had to bowl my best. Oddly enough, I bowled 29 299 games before I bowled my first 300 game. I bowled my first 300 game in 1995 in Florida at Seminole Lanes in Tampa, Florida. And that was an experience that I never forgot. But then after that, I bowled 8 300s that season after I bowled my first one. So I was always that way. It was hard for me to get to a certain pinnacle. For instance, I bowled for, 6 or 7 years before I shot my first 700 series, and then I bowled 7 of them in that week. I am in the Houma Hall of Fame, Lafayette Bowling Hall of Fame, Louisiana State Hall of Fame, SASBA Hall of Fame, that's Senior All-Star Bowling Association Hall of Fame, and now I'm going to be inducted to this Hall of Fame. I'm actually working for a Goodyear tire store, independent Goodyear tire store, and they have a wholesale tire department, and I am in charge of the wholesale tire department. I haven't grown up yet.